All right, we're back on the record now. Dr. Adamus has joined us via teleconference here. I would like to continue the last of our public testimony at this stage. There were a few of you who indicated you wanted to come up and speak one more time. There may have also been additional folks who came in after we started who wish to speak. So please, one at a time, come on up if there's anyone who has additional comments. And identify yourself when you sit down for the record, please.
Frank Penwell. I wanted to make one request to work on some language in this regarding what a wetland is not. The GMA states specifically what a wetland is not, but homeowners and stuff. There needs to be some simple process so when a homeowner comes in for the permit or something, or they don't have to go out and pay $9,000 to have somebody come and tell them, gee, you don't have a wetland because you're part of a drainage system or your pond was put in after a certain date or whatever it should be an extension of the homeowner's thing for something. A person should be able to say to the planning staff, look, this pond was put in after a certain date, it's not a wetland, or this is part of a drainage ditch, it's not a wetland. So something that would be helpful to the citizens would be, I'd like to see something.
Are there any additional comments?
I wasn't on this person. Sharon Clifton, full-time resident of San Juan Island. I just have a quick comment. I'm concerned about the ponding definition in the 14 days because in the winter it's so wet that I think all of us have standing water on our property for 14 days. And if that's going to be the definition of, or if that's going to trigger what the requirement is to have a wetland specialist come out and determine if that's a wetland or not. I think Mindy's going to make a ton of money. So I just think the time period should be extended, or what triggers it should be, extended. So. No, I mean, not that Mindy should not make it. I'm ready for it to start.
Janet Alderson from Orchid Island. On this topic, I overheard Barbara Thomas saying that she thought if she had a wetland and where it began and ended on her property, just by consulting for an hour or maybe two with a wetland specialist. She didn't get a written report, but she was reassured by this information that she didn't have a wetland to build. So you don't have to spend necessarily $3,000 or whatever figure. You can have a briefer consultation with the wetland specialist to get more information.
Is there any additional testimony at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to close public testimony for now and move to the stage where the Planning Commission asks questions of staff and Dr. Adamus, I guess, acting as staff. Dr. Adamus, can you hear us?
Just barely.
Just barely.
You're just going to have to speak louder, Brian.
I can move it a little closer, yes. Paul, I'm moving you.
Okay.
Bear with me here. We're going to cut right across the floor. We're getting much closer. Okay, good. Hold that taut. Try now, Brian.
Can you hear us now, sir?
Yes, I can.
And Shireen, can you give them a sound check too?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. At this point, commissioners, do we have questions for staff or Dr. Adamus? Bob?
And I guess I'm not sure which one it would be for, but it has to do with this standing water for 14 days. So in all instances, if we have a place where there's standing water for 14 days, does that indicate either a wetland or a possible wetland? And obviously it's partially size related, I assume.
The 14 days does not indicate necessarily that it is a wetland. is a higher likelihood of an area being a wetland if it's flooded for that long, because often when the soils are flooded for that long, they become anaerobic. That is, they lose oxygen. But that depends a lot on the type of soil and the location and so on. So 14 days is just it's a very approximate rule. And I would say that it indicates only a possible wetland, certainly not a definitive wetland.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Adamus? Anybody?
Dr. Adams, we had somebody testify that in Minnesota, they use a direct approach to protecting their wetlands. Instead of buffers, they ban pesticides, they prohibit or discourage lawns, aggressively manage septic systems, and probably a list of other things. Do you see any of those things as truly a replacement for the use of buffers?
I think that an approach like that would be a very expensive one for the county because it would require the county really to be policemen all the time out there watching to make sure, people didn't apply pesticides or didn't do this or that. It seems kind of heavy-handed in that sense and expensive. But it could, if there was adequate enforcement and monitoring, I could see that it could potentially replace buffers.
Thank you.
I have a question sort of for staff. I noticed the gentleman from the Department of Ecology was raising his hand as if he might ask a question. Is there some way within our process I can ask him what he wanted to ask or tell us?
Sure.
Could you speak up, please?
He's Dr. Adamus, was the chair of the Planning Commission, and he was just asking for clarification of, we have two representatives from the Department of Ecology here today also, and one of them wanted to speak related to what you're saying, so we're going to let them also, and they will introduce themselves when they speak.
All right.
This is Paul Anderson from the Department of Ecology, and I just wanted to add a clarifying remark about the 14 days. That is the standard that's used in the federal delineation guidance, and ecology follows that as well. So it's not a number that the county developed independently. And for state and federal delineation, it's 14 consecutive days within the growing season. Just to clarify where that came from.
Thank you. Bob.
The phrase within the growing season. Now that, I don't remember seeing that in any of our stuff. And my question for staff is I mean, we heard a member of the public state, well, wait a minute, in the wintertime, there's a lot of places that seem to have standing water for 14 days. And is that something that in our climate should be included? Is the wintertime considered the growing season? So I wonder if that's something when we work on our wording, I want to get the information we can now, if that's something that is possibly should be added or should not be added.
Yes, if I could comment on that. I know in Oregon, not the state of Oregon, but the NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, has indicated that the growing season is almost year-round, because of, especially towards the coast of Oregon. And I think that would be the case in Washington as well. Perhaps Paul Anderson could comment on it. But growing season, because of the maritime climate, is, for all intents and purposes, considered year-round, or close to that.
Thank you.
John.
Yeah, Dr. Adams, in going through the best available science and put together the synthesis and all of this, is there any areas you've seen in what, under the current wetlands rules and regulations that we have been failing?
Under the current rules, you mean the rules that were enacted in the 1990s?
Correct. The ones that we're operating in right now.
My charge on this project was twofold, both to consider the existing rules and also to consider the best available science. I was not charged with determining the health or the condition of wetlands in the county. That would have been a much more expensive and time-consuming study.
I understand.
So I could not judge from the health of the wetlands whether the old rules are failing, but I would judge that they are not in compliance with best available science currently.
Thank you.
Specifically, this is Mike Carlson, and specifically, Paul, would you please give us where they, which best available science that is, published and peer reviewed that has said that our current regulations are deficient?
Well, hopefully, Mike, I laid that out in my DAS report and in the subsequent